Hello, I'm Karina.
And I'm Jamie. Welcome to As Told by ADHD. This podcast is a brainchild of two best friends with ADHD who share a passion for learning and a knack for finding the most fascinating tidbits of knowledge.
Each week, we embark on a wild and hilarious journey of discovery as we dive headfirst into topics that pique our curiosity. From dark folklore to bizarre statistics, cultural ceremonies to famous dead people, we're here to entertain, educate, and tickle your funny bone.
This week on As Told by ADHD, I'm bringing you part 2 of our little mini-series, and I'm going to be talking about Anne Boleyn.
This sassy little mistress, little sneaky thing.
She was sassy. I'll just get there when I get there. But what do you know about her?
I know that she was a mistress who I don't want to give away the story, but she was beheaded because she stepped. I think this is the one that stepped out, right?
I'm just gonna get there when I get there.
Okay.
Whatever you know about Anne Boleyn, it's probably wrong.
Okay, let me just... Okay.
Exactly. Let's talk about Anne Boleyn. Her parents, her father, Thomas Boleyn, her mother, Elizabeth Howard, both come from very prominent families. They were already kind of in the royal sphere of sorts. They knew the royals, and their families knew the royals. They had an in, and they were both members of the royal court. And it is believed that they were married sometime in the late 1490s. And they had 3 children that survived into adulthood. It's believed that there was possibly 2 others that didn't survive into adulthood, but there's not much record on them. They had Mary Boleyn, born in 1499. They had Anne Boleyn, who was born in 1501. And they had George Boleyn, born in 1504. They were born into privilege, all of them. And Thomas wanted the best for his children, including the best education that he could possibly get them. So, Mary seemed to study with private tutors in their home. George also seemed to study with private tutors in their home, and then he later went to the University of Oxford for higher education. Anne started off studying at home, but she got lucky because she actually was sent to France to study at the court of Margaret of Austria at the age of 12. And she was sent as a lady-in-waiting to Princess Mary Tudor, who was the sister of King Henry VIII. And basically what she was doing there was she was completing education and she was forming political ties, as well as being a companion for the princess. Princess Mary was sent there to marry the French King Louis XII. But King Louis XII died after 3 months of marriage, and it is believed that he died of severe gout, which I did not know that you could die from, but apparently if it goes untreated, it causes severe cardiovascular issues. So that's why he died.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Mary ended up going back home, but not before she had a secret marriage with another man, because she didn't want to be married off again. And it was one of her brother's close friends too, which was funny. Anyway, that's not part of this story. Anne Boleyn stayed in France for about 7 years. So even though Mary was gone, she stayed. She completed her schooling. She became this woman of prestige and elegance that otherwise wouldn't have happened unless she went to this French court. And she was known to be extremely smart, extremely witty, and outspoken, which is kind of how you described Catherine of Aragon. So it seems like the king has a type.
He has a type, for sure.
So, all the while, Mary Boleyn marries a man named William Carey in 1520. This was about the time that her sister was coming home, and that is very relevant because Mary plays a big part in this too.
Oh.
The whole family does, really.
Oh,
So,
Lord.
just know, Mary is married. She is now Mary Carey.
Mary Carey.
When Anne returned home to England, she was about 20 years old, and she was brought back for an arranged marriage with her second cousin. Apparently, there was a dispute between her father and her cousin's father, her second cousin's father, of the earldom of a certain region. So, part of negotiations to kind of mend this family feud was for Anne to marry her cousin, James Butler. It seems that this arrangement was approved, maybe even concocted by the king himself. The marriage ended up not going through. So, she didn't marry her cousin.
Oh,
so she's
thank
fine.
God. Ew.
Yeah. Most likely because the terms of the negotiations weren't accepted by either party. So they kept bringing negotiations to the table, and it just never was what either party wanted. So they were like, fine, no, we're not doing this. So Anne goes back to English court. And like I said, she is confident. She is intelligent. She is sharp-witted. She's outspoken. And she becomes a lady-in-waiting to Catherine of Aragon around 1522.
So that's how she became the courtier.
Mm-hmm. So, while back at court, Anne starts getting closer to a man named Henry Percy. He was soon to be the 6th Earl of Northumberland. Henry seemed very smitten with Anne, and Anne very smitten with Henry. The problem was, Henry was already betrothed to a woman with a much higher status than Anne. It was arranged. The marriage to the other woman had already been approved by the king. Well, Henry was working at this man's house named Cardinal Thomas Wolsey. He was the king's chief advisor, and he ended up catching wind of the two and their secret engagement. So it seems like they were planning on running away together because they clearly really loved each other at this point.
Right.
So Thomas Wolsey brought the news to the king, and the king was not happy. He was against this completely. And he sent Henry back to Northumberland, and Anne was expelled from court. Anne was enraged. She vowed revenge on Wolsey because in her mind, Wolsey was the problem. But another thing to note about this little time period is the king had already started casting glances towards Anne's way around 1522, 1523. So he already had his eye on her. All the while, Mary Boleyn, now Mary Carey, has been having an affair with the king. The affair...
Stop!
No, I'm serious.
Stop it right now.
What are you
That's too much
thinking?
overlap in their histories. That's too much overlap. Holy small world. Okay.
So, the affair started around 1522, very soon after Mary got married. And we don't know exactly how the affair started. And we don't know if both parties were consenting or not. There's possibilities. One possibility is Mary had no choice. Because the king makes advances to you, you do what he says, or you and your husband get banished, and you're gone, and you lose everything. Option 2, Mary could have easily wanted to secure her place in court and pursue the king. Or option 3, it could have been consensual. So we don't know what happened. We don't know the ins and outs. If I had to pick one from my personal opinion, I think I lean more towards the first one just because there is an extreme power imbalance.
There really is.
So, he's sleeping with her sister. It's just crazy to me. Every time I think about it,
So it just makes me like even angrier towards him, really, because 1518 is when Catherine of Aragon had her last child. Like they just kind of gave up after this because it was another child who didn't survive, infancy, and it's just insane because we obviously discussed that it is true that he was very influenced by like outside people, but at the same time, like, shouldn't he have tried to do an annulment sooner if he was having a full-on affair because his wife wasn't having children?
well, it's funny you mention that because Mary wasn't the first one. I don't know if there was more than 2, but I know for a fact there was another one before Mary because he had a child with her that he claimed.
Oh, see, I dived so hard on Catherine, I didn't give two shites about what he was doing while she was handling business.
Right, but like I feel like I had to go this deep into like what he was doing because it's so messy. Like,
True.
this is history, you know?
Yeah, literally.
Like, get your tea out because it's crazy. Anyway.
Piping
So-
hot. Sorry.
We know their affair lasted around 3 to 5 years. In this time period, Mary did have children. We do not know if her children were her husband's or the king's. A lot of historians believe that at least one of them was the king's, but he never claimed them. Around 1524 to 1525, Anne would be welcomed back into court. Now, we don't know how or why this happened.
Sister, definitely.
No, I don't think so. If I had to guess, it was her father. I think her father orchestrated it. Because, like, from what I can tell, Anne and Mary aren't too close.
Interesting.
I don't know that to be, like, 100% fact, but, like, from vibes only, I don't think they were that close. Anyway, like I said, her father most likely orchestrated this, but Catherine of Aragon had to have approved it because she was brought back in as a lady in waiting, and that would not have happened if Catherine of Aragon had not approved it. It is also very likely that the king also approved it. So, but because it is ladies in waiting, it's not, like, that's usually the queen's, like, deal. Usually the king doesn't have too much say-so on it, or he doesn't care.
So
really?
it, like, means something that the king did, like, some talking in this negotiation?
Potentially. We don't know
Okay.
if the king said
Really
come
did,
back or anything. Yeah. We just know that Catherine had to have had approved it, or she would not have been welcomed back. And at this point, Thomas Wolsey did not object, because the reason he was so against Anne in the first place was because Percy had an arranged marriage with a woman of higher status whose dowry was insanely good for this time period. He was trying to do what was best for Percy's father. But now Percy's gone, there's no reason she shouldn't come back. So he was like, whatever. So once she was back in court, King Henry really set his sights on Anne. He was still married to Catherine, and he was likely still sleeping with her sister. Anne seemed to be very good at setting boundaries with the king, which is crazy, especially in this time period. How do you tell a king no? You know, in this time period, you could die if you tell a king no. But she was like, no. Because he wanted her as a mistress. Or it's likely that he wanted her as a mistress, not a wife. We don't know that to be fact, but it is heavily believed that he pursued her as only a mistress. And then she was like, actually, no, I'm wifey material, so I'm gonna go. So, and she knew at this time period, she was around 25 years old, and she knew that if she started having an affair with the king, she would likely never get married, because she's you have to be a virgin
Used
to
goods,
be
yeah.
wanted, And she knew that she would be tossed aside like the affairs before, like her sister would eventually if she hadn't already. And she was like, no, I'm not playing this game. So, and think about her sister, right? Her sister kind of had a cushion to fall back on. Being tossed aside by the king, she had a husband. So she wouldn't be left high and dry. But Anne was like, I want to get married, and it's either going to be to you or somebody else. So Anne withdrew from court. She said, oh, you're not going to put a ring on it? I'm going to go home. She went home. And she stayed there. She stayed there for years. And the king was like the longer that they spent apart, the more lovesick he got. It's like he really needed what he couldn't have. You could see this as Anne's way of attempting to manipulate him, or you can see this as a way of I'm taking myself out of this situation so I don't become used goods, so I can find a husband, so I can have a better life for myself. So I don't know what the truth is, but I know that removing herself from the situation was probably what was best for her in either regard.
Yeah.
So she goes and lives on her estate, or her family's estate, for a while, and he starts writing letters, love letters. And we know that Anne received them and she replied to some of them. We don't have any letters that survived from Anne, so we don't know what was said on her part.
Interesting.
The king's letters start to get a little more desperate with each letter of I just need you, blah, blah, blah. There's even one that he said some sexually explicit things, and I was like, what the fuck? I was very not happy. And I learned slang for breasts in that time period. They call them duckies.
Ew.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck that's about, but anyway. In 1528, Anne contracts the sweating sickness.
Uh-oh, Raggy.
And the king catches wind of that, and he's like, oh my God, the love of my life is about to die. He sends his doctors to tend to her, and that is a huge deal. Like, that is the biggest deal. At this point, he had already promised her that he was going to be loyal to her, and he was going to do whatever it took to be with her. And to her, the only way that could happen is if Catherine was out of the picture. So, basically giving him an ultimatum without giving him an ultimatum, he just knew that that's the only way that could happen. At this point, this is when annulment gets brought up. And King Henry talks to his friends about an annulment with Catherine of Aragon around 1527. And he mentioned, I want this to be deemed invalid. Like I didn't even want to marry this woman. It's my brother's widow. It's incestual, blah, 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 blah. Which, since when do you care about incest? Anyway.
Right.
So, like you said in the last episode, he petitioned the Pope to void the marriage. But this seemed like an impossible feat that he sent Thomas Wolsey to do. Thomas Wolsey was someone that the king turned to when he wanted the impossible done. And Thomas Wolsey, he got it done majority of the time.
What a little rat. Sorry.
That's what I'm saying. But Thomas Wolsey found the Emperor King Charles V to be an unbeatable foe. So, after several years, Wolsey still got nowhere. Eventually, he comes home, and because he failed, he ended up getting arrested for high treason because I'm not sure who blamed him or accused him of colluding with foreign powers, but he ended up getting sentenced to death for high treason. So Anne got her vengeance after all, because this was the man that that she swore.
That she think. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that too is just isn't that so interesting how they'll just people will literally be the scum of the earth in order to save their own necks, and then majority of the time it just kind of backfires on them.
Yeah. Absolutely. So Henry gets some new advisors, Thomas Cromwell and Thomas Cranmer. And they planted the idea in his head that the English church should split from, England itself should be split from the church.
Isn't it so interesting how much these stories overlap? Holy crap, okay.
They planted this idea in his head that he needed to become the supreme head of the Church of England. And spoiler, not so much spoiler, Thomas Cromwell was pushing this hard. He did not want the church to have control anymore. Why? Don't know. I just know he is a bastard, and we'll get to that later.
See, I was side note, this was one of the parts where I didn't know if I should go in detail or not. So I'm happy you're covering it because it literally puts in depth how much these stories kind of are intertwined with each other.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Well, I mean, especially with Thomas Cromwell, he is a huge part of Anne Boleyn's story, and we'll get there. Yeah, I hate him. So, Cranmer becomes the Archbishop of Canterbury. Canterbury. I don't know how they would say it. I tried to say it with a British accent. It didn't work. He declares Henry's marriage to Catherine invalid. And Henry and Anne secretly marry. And she's already pregnant. She is pregnant when they get married, secretly. Cranmer validates the marriage. So, she becomes officially the Queen of England. She goes to her coronation, she has her baby, and it was such a high hopes. There were so much high hopes from Anne and the king that she was carrying the next male heir to the throne. However, she had her baby in 1533, and it was a beautiful baby girl. This baby would eventually end up becoming Queen Elizabeth I. Henry was disappointed, not gonna lie, but it didn't seem to change his affections for Anne. He seemed to still be quite in love with her. And I was watching a couple of documentaries. I've watched several documentaries on her. There's so much information out there on her. Like, one or two of them mentioned that he loved children. Like, he loved playing with children and, like, being there with children. But then, like, once they get to a certain age, he's like, bah. Like, that's the kind of vibe I got. Like,
Ew.
anyway, well, it didn't seem like it was, like, in a provocative way. You know what I mean? Like,
No, not provocative, but
yeah.
just like get away. Like, oh, you're so cute. And like,
yeah, I don't know. But they would keep trying for a baby for a little while. And in 1536, Anne was pregnant. But around 4 months, she would lose the baby, and it was a baby boy. And Henry saw this as a bad omen. He was like, I've made a mistake. I shouldn't have done what I did. He's panicking, right? And guess the fuck what? Some people decide to take advantage of this situation. Thomas Cromwell. And he's like, I don't like Anne anymore. And I bet you're wondering, why doesn't he like Anne anymore? Well, let me tell you. So things started to shift with Anne because of the miscarriage of the baby boy and because she had Thomas Cromwell working in the shadows against her. At first, Thomas was fully supportive of Anne being queen, but it started shifting. Anne was outspoken. Anne was kind of philanthropic a little bit, like Catherine of Aragon. And the reason I say that is because the king, once the church was split from England, the king decides, I'm going to dissolve the monasteries, right? And I'm going to take the land and the wealth. And they were discussing what should be done with the wealth. Well, Anne was like, I think the funds should be used to go towards education, hospitals, helping the poor. Cromwell wanted it to go right back into the royal treasury. And he fought hard for it. It caused several screaming matches between them. One of them was documented where somebody alleged Anne said that she would make sure he would lose his head. Ironic. Yeah. All the while, Henry actually started showing interest in another lady in waiting named Jane Seymour. And Cromwell decided to ride this momentum that was carrying Henry away from Anne. Cromwell accused Anne of adultery, not with one, not with two, not with three, but 6 men, one being her own brother. Did he have any proof?
So is it not
No.
true?
Mm-mm. Well, I believe it's not true. And most historians believe that majority of it is not true. So let me tell you about the 6 men who were accused. There was Mark Smeaton. He was a court musician. He was the only commoner accused. It is theorized that he was tortured, which led to his confession. We don't have proof that he was tortured. He's the only one that confesses to anything. There's Henry Norris. He was a really good friend of the king, which gave him a lot of political power, a lot of sway over the king. Anne made a joke one time that she was waiting for Henry to die so he could marry Anne. Now, that seems like a joke of dark humor that was taken and twisted out of context, because the likelihood that Henry wasn't in that room with them is extremely low. Because why would the king leave his best friend and his wife in the room alone? It's like, and it sounds like a conversation that you would have when you're drinking with somebody. Like, you're all having dinner, you're all drinking, and you're like, I'm gonna marry this guy when you die. You know, like.
Yeah, I mean, humor only went so far. Let's be so for real. So, especially between best friends, like, yeah.
And, like, it was probably just a way that they, like, messed with each other. We don't know the dynamic between Anne and Henry, but clearly she would push back on Henry because she was outspoken, and just how the relationship started to begin with. Like, she wasn't afraid to tell him no. So, like, I don't know. I just don't see her making that joke unless he's in the room. I don't have proof of that, but that's just my opinion. There was Francis Weston, a gentleman of the Privy Chamber. Now, this is somebody who is kind of like a trusted friend of the royals that would kind of take care of the king and queen in their chambers. So this man was assigned to Anne's chambers. So he would go in and, like, clean up a little bit, maybe turn her bed down. And somebody, we don't know who, stated that they had seen Anne flirting with him. And that was why he got charged. There was William Brereton. He was one of the wealthiest and most politically powerful men in Wales. And there is little to no evidence that he had ever been alone with Anne.
It's who he is. That's they probably wanted to just get rid of him. That's so messed up, dude.
He spent majority of his time in Wales. The claims that were being made were proven false, but he still got accused and proven guilty in a court of law, even though there was no evidence. And finally, George Boleyn, Anne's brother. This, in my opinion, was a strategic measure, because someone could say, oh, a wife stepped out on her husband because he wasn't giving her enough attention. He wasn't doing this. He wasn't doing that. But if she sleeps with her brother, then she just can't help herself. It's her, not the king. And that's why I believe George was also accused. Every single man, besides the first one I mentioned, denied everything. But they were all found guilty and executed. Anne was arrested in 1536 and taken to the Tower of London. And there was a trial. And she walked into that room and saw all of her political enemies in that room ready to judge her. She was found guilty. It was said that in the end, Anne either had hope that the king would pardon her, or she had fully accepted her fate. She seemed calm from all accounts up until the very last moment. Like, the entire time after she was sentenced to execution, she was just calm. She would make jokes. She made a joke about how the executioner would have a better time cutting her head off because she has a small neck. Like, she has a dark humor. She was trying to make light of the situation. And I think, just from what I've read and seen, it seemed like her ladies in waiting were very, very upset about this. Like, they really liked her, and they believed she was innocent. And so I think, in my opinion, she was trying to make it easier for them. So she would be taken to where she would take her final breath in her private execution. And it was believed that in one final act of kindness, the king, Henry VIII, sent for a professional swordsman from France to behead her. Because at this time, in England, the method of execution was by axe. And it usually took more than one swing to behead someone. But he knew that if he got a professional swordsman from France, it would be one swift cut and it would be over. And that's what happened. Before she was executed, she gave a little speech. I want to read you her final words because I think it's very powerful, and I think that it's a statement in itself. Good Christian people, I have come hither to die, for according to the law, and by the law I am judged to die, and therefore I will speak nothing against it. I am come hither to accuse no man, nor speak anything of that, wherefore I am accused and condemned to die. But I pray God save the king, and send him long to reign over you, for a gentler nor more merciful prince was there never. And to me he was ever good, and a gentle and sovereign lord. And if any person will meddle of my cause, I require them to judge the best, and thus I take my leave from this world and of you all. I heartily desire you to all pray for me. O Lord, have mercy on me. To God I commend my soul. After this, she was blindfolded, and she kneeled, and one swift blow, it was over. Immediately after her head fell to the ground, her ladies in waiting rushed over, grabbed her head, and covered it to kind of shield her honor. It is said that there were a few people that noticed her mouth was still moving in prayer moments after it had been separated from her body. Her head had been separated.
Well,
yeah. The ladies in waiting refused to let any man touch her body. They carried her to a nearby chapel where she would be buried in a makeshift, hastily repurposed elm trunk that had stored used arrows, and it was made into a makeshift coffin. Anne was buried in a shallow grave in front of the high altar next to her brother George in the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula. That is a very tragic story, and I think that she deserved a lot more than she was given. I think that a man named Thomas Cromwell let power go to his head. He thought he was untouchable, and he wasn't, because 4 years later, Cromwell loses favor with the king, and I'll tell you that story when we talk about King Henry's fourth wife.
dun, dun, dun. Just deserts to be continued. Garbage.
Yeah.
Literal garbage.
It is believed that there could be some truth to Anne's infidelity, but definitely not all of them. But even if there was,
Mm-hmm.
everybody knows, obviously, that he has had affairs too.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I hate the stigma behind, like, that women had to, like, prevent themselves from, like, becoming.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the amount of pressure to be a woman who was pure and obedient and all this kind of stuff. Even if, like, the purest soul, the purest bride could still be accused with words and die.
Yeah.
Still a virgin.
Mm-hmm.
A word. You know? Like, that's,
Yeah.
like, unbelievable pressure. And obviously, like, like, lower class men, too, because they weren't the king, is why I'm saying lower, because, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
king, yeah. They're, like, upper middle class men, essentially. Like, they were even able to die with just a word.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane to me.
Yeah. I think, in my personal opinion, I think the most that she ever did, because there is no proof. There is no written evidence anywhere that this is true. In my opinion, I believe she was a little flirty. And Thomas Cromwell saw that, saw what was happening with the king, and saw an opportunity to get rid of someone who was politically against him. And because she had lost favor with the king because her first male pregnancy was miscarried, I believe that all the stars just aligned perfectly for him to step in and be like, I want her gone. And he did it.
So
So
messed up.
he's the villain in my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, her final statement too, I feel like that says a lot about her character. Because she never once said a bad thing against the government, against her husband, against anyone who accused her. She never admitted to anything. She just said, I've been accused and condemned to die, and I accept what's happening, is her basic message. And I think that is extremely powerful.
Oh, for
because like any normal person would get up there and cry and sob and be like, I didn't do this. Why is this happening to me? But she didn't. She took it with grace. She knew that there was no coming back from it. And I know that there was like talk, like some historians think that she was hoping that the last hour the king would change his mind and
I mean, of
come and
course,
save
who
her.
wouldn't? They're human.
I don't think she did.
Really?
I think she knew what happened. I think she was smart enough to know that the king was done with her. And she was the first queen executed in England.
Yeah. I think he has, he's been with some very honorable women, because I honestly thought that,
She was
Anne Boleyn
conniving.
was, yeah, I
That's
really
what
did.
people think.
And then Catherine, I just thought that she just, not necessarily was a bad person, but she just couldn't do it. Like, she just couldn't have children. And I thought that was just because, I mean, women have to deal with that, like, even nowadays.
Mhm.
Like, they literally can't have children, right?
Right?
But it was a lot deeper than that. I
Yeah.
mean, you have incest that you brought up that I didn't even think about when I was doing research. Like, maybe he is so incest that he can't have children. Maybe she, maybe, like, what are the factors that made them
Mhm.
unable to have children? Right now,
Right.
the signs are kind of pointing-ish more so at he, because he's had, been with multiple women and they've had children that have died. But at the same time, I think it's just healthcare in general back then. They didn't have
That
antibiotics. They
too.
didn't have prenatal vitamins. They didn't have like all these things that we have now that can keep a pregnancy viable.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think that's the main factor because like infant mortality in that time period, crazy high.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It was.
Yeah. But I'm glad that I was able to shed some light on who Anne Boleyn was
Yeah.
and like what I want you and our audience to take away from this is that don't judge someone by what someone says about them. You know,
Yeah.
like I think that that is a very dangerous mindset to have.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, like if someone is hurting and upset, believe their story until
Mm-hmm.
there's evidence otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
But like, don't like if somebody is like, that person's cheating on their significant other and you don't know that person, like,
Mm-hmm.
don't judge them for that. Because I feel like public, like, people wanted Anne Boleyn to be the villain from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But it seemed like he genuinely did love Anne at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because, like, with the first child, he didn't turn his back on her because it was a girl.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, he was like, okay, we can just keep trying. This is a good sign. You had a baby. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is your first pregnancy and you had it. Like, we're doing good things. Like, we can keep going.
Yeah, that and what he did, whether it's now considered like a toxic thing, like wanting what he couldn't have or whatever, he did
Yeah.
put in a lot of effort, which he thought for sure was from the heart and out of love for Anne Boleyn, you know, when he was trying to get with her. So
Right. Yeah. And it makes me curious. Like, did she want to be with him? Did she genuinely care for him? Or was she pressured into it? Because I feel like that's a really common story throughout history, that there is a man who is constantly persistent and then finally the woman's like, okay, fine.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good question.
So
I wonder what
know.
our consensus is going to be after this is over.
I don't know. All
I'm
I
excited to
know
find out, though.
is that I hate Thomas Cromwell. And I can't wait to tell you the story.
Yes, I can't wait for the tea, the history tea.
Yeah. But what did you think about the messiness of it all? Because it felt like Gossip Girl.
Oh my gosh, it was. It was so good. I literally thought I was listening to like a soap opera. I'm not kidding. Like
And this
less
happened.
Gossip Girl, literal soap opera.
It's like
Sleeping with the sister. You know?
Yeah. It's like soap opera meets Downton Abbey.
Yes. 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 Absolutely. It was good. That was good. That was juicy until the heartbreaking stuff started. So,
yeah. But anyway, what do you guys think? I want to know your comments, questions, concerns in the comments below. I want to know, like, what's your opinion on Anne Boleyn after hearing this story, before hearing this story? Like, did your opinion change at all? Or do you still see her in a light that is a little more negative? In my opinion, there's really no wrong answers because we don't know what happened. Like, we are only being told what happened. We weren't there. We don't know. But from my perspective, I think she was innocent.
same.
So
Same.
I hope you guys enjoyed the story. Like, subscribe, comment, and I think on YouTube there's a new hype thing. I don't know how that works, but if you figure it out, you can do it, and then maybe put in the comments how to do it.
Yeah. For us and for everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you guys gonna do nice for yourself this week?
That's a very good question. I hope.
I think
Oh, go
I'm
ahead.
going to continue doing what I said I was going to do last week, which is read, because I am finding that very therapeutic until I can go outside, because it's going to keep raining for another couple days. So I think I'm, after this, going to go cook dinner, and it's going to be really quick dinner. It's going to be great. And then I'm going to sit down and watch a K-drama.
Yes, ma'am. She's into
Yum.
K-dramas now.
She's finally hopping on, okay?
Girl, I've been hopped on.
Well, no, I've been hopped on since 2020, and then you started like last year.
It was before that. It's been like 2 years.
Oh, it's been 2 years already? Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh, well. I'm just happy.
She been
We
done
have
hopped
that to
on.
share. She been not hopped on. My bad.
Well, I hope you guys have a wonderful week, weekend, day, year, month. I don't know. Just have a great time.
Be great.
And I would like to tell you goodbye.
Goodbye. Oh, shoot. I don't know if I can do that. Okay. Goodbye. I didn't go as high, but it's fine.
It's okay.
I'm not confident. I'm not confident. Goodbye.